that all of us face, not just me, our citizens face, not just political leaders, is at what point do we say we need to confront violating our common humanity? And I would argue that when I see 400 children subjected to gas, over 1,400 innocent civilians dying senselessly, in an environment in which you already have tens of thousands dying, and we have the opportunity to take some action that is meaningful, even if it doesn't solve the entire problem, may at least mitigate this particular problem, then the moral thing to do is not to stand by and do nothing. But it's difficult. This is the part of my job that I find most challenging every single day. I would much rather spend my time talking about how to make sure every 3- and 4-year-old gets a good education than I would spending time thinking about how can I prevent 3- and 4-year-olds from being subjected to chemical weapons and nerve gas. Unfortunately, that's sometimes the decisions that I'm confronted with as President of the United States. And frankly, as President of the United States, I can't avoid those questions. Because as much as we are criticized, when bad stuff happens around the world, the first question is, what is the United States going to do about it? That's true on every issue. It's true in Libya, it's true in Rwanda, it's
bullshit.
True in Sierra Leone. It's now true in Syria. That's part of the deal. What was the second question? Well, I think we have great opportunities. I think there's a good chance for Frederick to talk about our shared views here, because we have, I think, a joint belief that developed countries have to make progress, but we have to have an international framework to address where the increases in emissions are now occurring.
Okay, well, I totally agree to that. I think it's been a very interesting development after Copenhagen. I learned, we were both present in Copenhagen, that we were saying that US had the highest emissions in the world and that China was catching up. Now, only a few years later, we have a situation where China is now double the emissions of the ones we have in US. This is actually reshaping the situation when it comes to climate protection. We are both responsible for lowering our emissions, and we are doing so. But what we must also face the fact that we very soon have a situation where 25% of the global emissions is from European Union and United States together. So the world can't say, solve it, pointing at a quarter. They need to take in the 75% outside of European Union and United States. That is our problem. We want to deal with this, but it has to be a global answer.
The final question goes to Margaret Talov of Bloomberg News.
Thank you. Mr. President, tomorrow you'll see President Putin at the G20 with Russia and U.S. relations seriously strained. Do you see value in trying to persuade him still to drop opposition to a Syrian strike? Or are your efforts now aimed at excluding Russia from the decision? And looking back at your hopes for a reset, do you believe that you overestimated what you could change, or do you believe that Mr. Putin changed the rules midway? If you will indulge me, I have one more, but it's all related.
I will indulge you.
Thank you.
Somebody you ask the question, I may not answer it, but go ahead.
Could you take us behind the scenes on that 45-minute walk around the South Lawn where you changed your mind and decided to take this before Congress? And Mr. Prime Minister...
Oh, goodness. Margaret, you're really pressing things now. So this is question number 4 now.
No, this is for the Prime Minister. You have expressed some doubts about military action in Syria, and I'm wondering if you could be a little bit more specific about what you're concerned the consequences may be, and whether you believe that President Putin has any shares any burden of the responsibility for Mr. Assad's actions. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I'm
Why would
gonna try
Putin
and
be
remember all this.
responsible?
First of all, the reset in the Russian relationship was not done on a whim. There were specific U.S. interests that I believed we could pursue with Russia, where interests overlapped, that would help us both on our long-term national security and our economy. And we succeeded. We succeeded in passing a New START treaty that reduced nuclear stockpiles for both the United States and Russia. Russia joined the WTO, which bound them to a set of international rules governing trade, which I think ultimately will be good for the Russian economy, but is also good for its trading partners and potential companies that are investing in Russia, and that includes U.S. companies. We work together on counterterrorism issues. They have provided us significant assistance in supplying our troops in Afghanistan. There were a whole host of outcomes from that reset that were valuable to the United States. Now, there's no doubt that, as I indicated a while back, we've kind of hit a wall in terms of additional progress. But I have not written off the idea that the United States and Russia are going to continue to have common interests, even as we have some very profound differences on some other issues. And where our interests overlap, we should pursue common action. Where we've got differences, we should be candid about them, try to manage those differences, but not sugarcoat them. One area where we've got a significant difference right now is the situation in Syria. Russia has a long-standing relationship with the Assad regime. And as a consequence, it has been very difficult to get Russia working through the Security Council to acknowledge some of the terrible behavior of the Assad regime and to try to push towards the kind of political transition that's needed in order to stabilize Syria. And I've said to Mr. Putin directly, and I continue to believe, that even if you have great concerns about elements in the opposition, and we've got some concerns about certain elements of the opposition like al-Nusra, and even if you're concerned about the territorial integrity of Syria, and we're concerned about the territorial integrity of Syria, if you in fact want to end the violence and slaughter inside of Syria, then you're going to have a political transition, because it is not possible for Mr. Assad to regain legitimacy in a country where he's killed tens of thousands of his own people. That will not happen. So far, at least, Mr. Putin has rejected that logic. As far as security action, Security Council action, we have gone repeatedly to the Security Council for even the most modest of resolutions condemning some of the actions that have taken place there, and it has been resisted by Russia. Do I hold out hope that Mr. Putin may change his position on some of these issues? I'm always hopeful, and I will continue to engage him because I think that international action would be much more effective, and ultimately we can end deaths much more rapidly if Russia takes a different approach to these problems. In terms of my decision to take the issue to Congress, this had been brewing in my mind for a while. Some people had noted, and I think this is true, that had I been in the Senate in the midst of this period, I probably would have suggested to a Democratic or Republican president that Congress should have the ability to weigh in on an issue like this that is not immediate, imminent, time sensitive. When the chairman of Joint Chiefs, Mr. Dempsey, indicated to me that whether we struck today, tomorrow, or a month from now, we could still do so effectively, then I think that raised the question of why not ask Congress to debate this in a serious way. Because I do think it raises issues that are going to occur for us and for the international community for many years to come. I mean, the truth of the matter is that under international law, Security Council resolution, or self-defense or defense of an ally provides a clear basis for action. But increasingly what we're going to be confronted with are situations like Syria, like Kosovo, like Rwanda, in which we may not always have a Security Council that can act. It may be paralyzed for a whole host of reasons. And yet we've got all these international norms that we're interested in upholding. We may not be directly, imminently threatened by what's taking place in a Kosovo or Syria or Rwanda in the short term, but our long-term national security will be impacted in a profound way, and our humanity is impacted in a profound way. And so I think it's important for us to get out of the habit in those circumstances. Again, I'm not talking about circumstances where our national security is directly impacted, we've been attacked, etc., where the president has to act quickly. But in circumstances of the type that I described, it's important for us to get out of the habit of just saying, well, we'll let the president kind of stretch the boundaries of his authority as far as he can. Congress will sit on the sidelines, snipe. If it works, the sniping will be a little less. If it doesn't, a little more. But either way, the American people and their representatives are not fully invested in what are tough choices. And we as a country and the world are going to start having to take tough choices. I do get frustrated, although I understand how complex this is. And anytime you're involving military action, then people will ask, well, this may do more harm than good. I understand those arguments. I wrestle with them every day. But I do have to ask people, well, if in fact you're outraged by the slaughter of innocent people, what are you doing about it? And if the answer is, well, we should engage diplomatically, well, we've engaged diplomatically. The answer is, well, we should shine the spotlight and shame these governments. Well, these governments oftentimes show no shame. Well, we should act internationally. Well, sometimes because of the various alignments, it's hard to act through a Security Council resolution. And so either we resign ourselves to saying there's nothing we can do about it, and we'll just shake our heads and go about our business, or we make decisions even when they're difficult. And I think this is an example of where we need to make decisions even though they're difficult, and I think it's important for Congress to be involved in that decision.
I think I should answer the question. I think you're right in saying that this is a very difficult decision to take. And as always, it's a balancing act. And we've been discussing this during our talks. Just to remind you, you're now in Sweden, a small country with a deep belief in the United Nations. We're also in a country where I think yesterday or the day before we took the decision that all the people that now are coming from the war in Syria are allowed to stay permanently in Sweden. So a lot of the people following this press conference here in Sweden are actually just now coming from Syria. And of course wondering what is the view of their country. And they have a lot of their countrymen also in this country. So we have a lot of roots and links to Syria. I think the main problem has been for 2.5 years now that we have a war without a clear political solution. And that, at the end of the day, must be. We must get a ceasefire, we must get a peace process, we must get people to talk to each other. I totally understand the complex situation also on the opposition, because we have part of the opposition also here in Sweden, which is now conducted of different groups. They want to get Assad out of the picture, but what do they want instead? That is, of course, a question we need to attend to. The weapons inspector that was present in Damascus is headed by a Swede. So in this country, of course, we are asking for the time to be able to see what were their foundings, especially since President Obama has sent the decision also to Congress. We think that that gives us some more time, and we are welcoming that. Having said that, I also said that I understand the absolute problem of not having a reaction to use of chemical weapons and what kind of signal that sends to the world in a time where we are developing our view on international law, not saying that you're allowed to do whatever you like to your own people as long as it's inside your own borders. No, we have these, we need to protect people, we need to look at the interests of each and every one. So this is the development we are seeing. That's the same discussion we are having in Sweden. So I understand, especially for the US President, he needs to react, otherwise he will get another kind of discussion. But this small country will always say, let's put our hope into the United Nations, let us push on some more to get a better situation. Of course, President Putin has a responsibility in that, of course, because everyone understands that Russia and also China has been outside of decision-making that we would have needed a long time ago to put more clear pressure and more political solution. So that is what we have been discussing today. If you balance all these sentences, that shows how difficult this is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes this press conference. Thank you all for attending.
President Obama and the Prime Minister of Sweden wrapping up a news conference.
Okay. I'm not willing to sit and listen to the pundits because they always talk shit. Looks like he's shoring up his support. No. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this at all. So now Sweden has an invested interest in Syria, but we're going to claim it's the refugees we have an interest in. I'm still calling bullshit. If we weren't creating all these refugees in the first place, there would be no need for anybody to be taking anybody else in. But we always support the wrong shit. Never fails. Anyhow, I gotta go pull the rest of my hair out because I can't handle any more of this crap with this. I just can't. I just. Stunning comparison to Kosovo, though. That just. My jaw almost hit the ground. I was just like, what? I was mentally sitting here going, are you serious? Did you really just say that? He thinks that we're all really this goddamn stupid, and this is what's so sad, is that he doesn't realize that not all of us went to public schools, and even those of us who did, we actually learned how to read.
Not to stand by and do nothing. But it's difficult. This is the part of my job that I find most challenging every single day. I would much rather spend my time talking about how to make sure every 3- and 4-year-old gets a good education than I would spending time thinking about how can I prevent 3- and 4-year-olds from being subjected to chemical weapons and nerve gas. Unfortunately, that's sometimes the decisions that I'm confronted with as President of the United States. And frankly, as President of the United States, I can't avoid those questions. Because as much as we are criticized, when bad stuff happens around the world, the first question is, what is the United States going to do about it? That's true on every issue that all of us face, not just me. Our citizens face, not just political leaders, is at what point do we say we need to confront
Oh shit.
violating our common humanity. And I would argue that when I see 400 children subjected to gas, over 1,400 innocent civilians dying senselessly, in an environment in which you already have tens of thousands dying, and we have the opportunity to take some action that is meaningful, even if it doesn't solve the entire problem, may at least mitigate this particular problem, then the moral thing to do is, it's true in Libya, it's true in Rwanda, it's
Bullshit!
true in Sierra Leone, it's now true in Syria. That's part of the deal. What was the second question? I think we have great opportunities. I think there's a good chance for Frederick to talk about our shared views here, because we have, I think, a joint belief that